Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoyed that new intro. Since I have a new channel name, might as well have a new intro. And that's the one you're going to be seeing on all my movie reviews, TV reviews, top 10 lists. But I do have another intro made specifically for all my retro reviews. So the next retro review I'll be doing is probably Scream 2, so keep your eyes open for that intro and that review. But right now, I'm not talking about the Scream movies. I am talking about The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg. The movie follows a young boy named Sammy Fabelman who has a dream of being a filmmaker. One night, his parents take him to see Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth, and he is mesmerized by this experience. One of the big standout scenes in that movie for him is the train sequence that he just keeps running through his head over and over again on how did they do that? How can I recreate that? And thus, he set on a path to make his own home movies, with a bunch of his friends to eventually become a great Hollywood director. I mean, essentially, this is Steven Spielberg's autobiography. When I did my list of my top 15 favorite movies of last year, The Fabelmans was not in that list, but it was an honorable mention. So now, with not a whole lot coming out in January in terms of new releases, or at least releases that really interest me, this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about some of the movies that came out last year that are big award contenders, or at the very least, movies I want to talk about. And with The Fabelmans, I was looking forward to this. Steven Spielberg, of course, is an iconic director, and for him to make what is essentially his own life story is something I was curious about. And even though I really love Steven Spielberg, most of his movies post-Jurassic Park have not been among my absolute favorites. I mean, I can't say none of them are, because I love Saving Private Ryan. I love The Adventures of Tintin. I think that's highly underrated. Catch Me If You Can is great. And his remake of West Side Story from 2 years ago is a perfect adaptation of the original play, and a movie that rivals the original 1961 classic. And with The Fabelmans, this is more like his other Oscar movies. It very much is a Spielberg Oscar bait film. Nothing wrong with it at the end of the day, but it didn't really do anything that made me go, wow, that was impressive, because like I've said with West Side Story and The Adventures of Tintin, Spielberg seems to be creatively inspired when he's tackling a genre he's never dealt with before. But I will say with The Fabelmans, considering that this is his life story, he puts more heart and care into this movie than he did in some other Oscar movies. The one that comes to mind right away is War Horse, which I think is maybe his worst movie. And even with a lot of other films that I do enjoy, like Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, and The Post, those three films are really, really good, but I'm just not in love with them, and they don't do anything that special. And much like with those other movies that I mentioned, The Fabelmans does have a few of those melodramatic Spielberg moments that I can't stand in terms of his dramas, which is probably the main reason why it didn't make my best of the year list last year. But I don't want to give you the impression that I didn't like this movie, because I did. There's a lot more about this movie that works than doesn't. The performances are all great. Spielberg really knows how to work well with actors. I've heard a lot of people complain about both Michelle Williams and Paul Dano as the parents, especially Michelle Williams. Some people say she's over the top, ridiculous, and gives a terrible performance. Others think she's really good. I'm in the latter camp, where I think she's good. And I don't think it's really fair to say that these two actors are doing a disservice to these characters, because look, I didn't know Steven Spielberg's parents. I don't know Steven Spielberg as a person. So if there's anybody who knows his parents as well as anyone, it's Steven Spielberg. So I just say, let the man direct these two actors the way he wants to direct them. For me, and for the context of the movie, I think both of their performances are really good. Seth Rogen is really good in the movie as Sam Fabelman's surrogate uncle. The actor that plays Sammy Fabelman, Gabriel LaBelle, does a really good job as well. I've never seen this actor before, but he's got a lot of charisma, and there were a lot of points watching this character throughout the movie where I kind of thought back to moments in my childhood. Now, I had no aspirations to actually be a filmmaker. I still don't. But I did attempt to make a few home movies, and one of them is actually on YouTube right now on my old channel involving Godzilla. And if you want to see it, you can, but fair warning, there is a line of dialogue that is not appropriate at all, and I regret it. I cringe thinking about that one line of dialogue. It was meant for comedy, but nowadays I'm just like, ugh. Not to get sidetracked, but the point is, watching Sammy Fabelman just make these home movies kind of reminded me of that time when I made that one movie and showed it to my class in 7th grade, and they loved it. Everything else about the movie is very well made. The cinematography is good. John Williams' score is subtle, but it's very nice. I think it runs a little too long, but I never found myself bored. Again, the worst parts about the movie, I think, are a lot of the melodramatic Spielberg moments that kind of drag down his Oscar movies. But that being said, I still think this movie is at the very least worth seeing in your lifetime. It's a shame that this movie didn't make a whole lot of money, much like West Side Story, which I think is a better movie, but it's certainly entertaining, and among all the Oscar movies that Spielberg has made in the past 12 years, I'd say this is the next best one behind West Side Story. And two other things I should mention before I end the review is that both Judd Hirsch as Sammy's granduncle and David Lynch as John Ford are cameos, but their scenes are great. Each of these actors steals the very small scenes that they're in, and I just couldn't end this review without talking about both those actors. So the overall movie itself, while it's not one of my favorites of 2022, it's really good nonetheless. And there you go, that's my review for The Fabelmans. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to give a special shout out to my friend Jonathan Fisher for helping me to make these new intros for my videos going forward, because I am clueless when it comes to After Effects, and I'm grateful I know people who can help me out with this. So thank you, Jonathan, for that. But now I want to know what you guys think about The Fabelmans. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.